Victims Act, it was a pretty significant change. And one of the reasons it was passed was because when you have child victims, they have a much greater tendency to repress the memory of the incident and under a lot greater pressure not to say anything for institutional reasons as well. So I don't know that we can necessarily compare that situation with this situation that's being proposed here. I also don't think it's appropriate to compare civil remedies with potential prison time as a consequence if there is a reported act that results in a conviction. It's one thing to try to defend against a civil accusation, and the burden of proof on the plaintiff is lower, but the consequences are also much less serious. It's a whole other thing to be faced with 10, 15, 20 years of prison time based upon what could be very, very old evidence. It's hard enough to defend some of these cases because a lot of it comes down to he said, she said, and doesn't have the physical evidence as determinative. The physical evidence tends to be, yes, there was sexual conduct, but the question of whether or not there was consent is a whole different issue, and that makes it that much tougher. I would also note, as Chairman Limmer brought up, the issues of defending against false accusations. We did have testimony from the Attorney General's task force, and in their report, they noted that there was a footnote that made reference to the study that identified the incidence of false accusations. Now, I don't by any means intend to suggest that they are common, but the study showed that up to 10 out of 100 or 10% of accusations may be false. So those aren't my numbers, those are out of the Attorney General's task force report. So it just highlights the importance of being careful in this arena. I think I agree with Mr. Backus in terms of the interpretation of the existing law. There is no statute of limitations on when this kind of thing could be reported. Now, what law enforcement does with it is a whole nother story, and we are taking a lot of steps to try to tackle that problem. And I think that is largely the reason why there have been such a low conviction rate or clearance rate or rate of investigation, a lot of other issues going on there. I don't think it has to do so much with whether or not reports are being made to the law enforcement agencies, at least not based on the studies and the media and everything that I've read about. So I too am pretty skeptical about removing any further statutes of limitations issues here. When memories fade over time, I don't think that's just a matter of the ability of the prosecutor to prove a case, but memories fade over time, and people fill in memories sometimes. You don't have to listen to experts on memory reconstruction and so on, but people fill in memories even at our age. We start to think, well, what would I have done in that situation that happened yesterday or 2 days ago? And two different people will come up with exactly opposite memories of what happened even 5 minutes after something happened. I mean, we had an experiment in my law school class during criminal law when a person, this was pre-planned by the professor, but we didn't realize it at the time, barged in the classroom, went off, yelling and screaming and so on for about 5 minutes and then departed. And then we all went around the classroom and we started asking them, seeing the other lawyers' heads nodding, they probably had the same or similar experience. Did the person have a beard? Was the person wearing glasses? What color was the shirt? What color were the pants? And these are fairly smart people, and we had as many different answers as there were people in the room. So over 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years, memories fade. And I would like to believe that every prosecutor is going to make the judgment of whether or not to prosecute based entirely on the provability of the case and the evidence that they have before them. But I've been practicing law for 31 years, 25 of that doing criminal defense as well as some prosecution. And I will tell you, there are prosecutors who will bring charges because they feel they need to bring charges, because they feel an obligation to believe an accusation, even if they're going to have great difficulty in proving the case to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. And there are prosecutors who are going to bring charges because that's the political dynamic going on in their community at the time, or because the family that's involved in the case is this prominent family in the town. I'm not saying every prosecutor does this. I'm not going to, I would never make that kind of a statement, but it happens. And the mere fact of an accusation will destroy the life of the accused. It will destroy the life of the accused. And that's not to say that the life of the victims aren't also destroyed by what really happened. But there's a statute of limitations in law for all sorts of things for very important reasons. And I think if we just ignore those reasons, we do so at our peril, and we set very dangerous precedent as well. I mean, the argument Representative Pinto was making could apply to every case, every criminal case. Theoretically, memories fade, or whatever the argument is, evidence gets worse, so let the prosecutors just decide 20, 30, 40 years later if they've got an accusation, they should go ahead and bring the charge if they want to, or if they think they can prove the case. Well, everyone needs some finality at some point as well. And we do live in a constitutional system where due process is paramount. So I know there are probably some people not happy listening to what I'm saying, or unhappy with the implications of what I'm saying. We're here not to do political justice. We're here to do, our job as legislators, to do constitutional justice, to make sure the system is set up so that what's done is constitutional and fair and due process wise. And so I would urge us, I want to hear more about this as we kind of work through our conversations and our discussions. But I think we got to be really, really careful about taking these steps that are proposed here.